can we? How many people viewed this on?
We can, views, yeah. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Can you hear me all the way in the back? Sorry, I couldn't resist that. The crowd's been low. I think COVID has had a great effect on things, but we do appreciate your being here tonight. Don't forget to validate your parking ticket before you leave. If you haven't done so, just go to the front desk. They'll be glad to do it for you. And there's a bowl there for any contributions if you are so inclined to give toward the event. We are very appreciative of any donations that are made. Before I give the ground rules tonight, I just want to say how troubled I am by the news today of 14 elementary school kids being killed. I don't know where we're going to wake up in this country. I don't know where you stand on this issue, but it just makes me extremely angry. And when I hear politicians say, you're in our thoughts and prayers, I say, bullshit. Do something about it. So that's my sermon for the day. Oh, okay. Harry's going to speak.
Totally agree with you.
Conversation with Diane, we were talking about the possibility of that being a subject either for Spirit on Tap or someone. So if anyone knows a psychologist that would be able to speak to this, the question of how this has gotten into the American psyche and what is the cause of it and what to be done about it.
Thank you, Harry. Great idea. Great idea. Thank you. All right. Deep breath. On with the ground rules. Our purpose is to gather in a setting where challenging and complex current cultural and religious faith issues are presented, shared, and discussed. We're not here to judge, but rather to create a safe space for significant conversation. Please be respectful of others and the views that they express. There will be a presentation of 45 minutes to an hour, or however long Mary chooses to go. And we will have time for questions and comments after that. Although we want to encourage good discussion, please don't dominate the conversation to a point where others are unable to share their thoughts. Even though there's a small group here tonight, I'm still going to ask you to abide by these rules. Please raise your hand if you have a question or a comment to make, and Dr. Doctor will bring you the microphone, and you can raise your question or ask or make your comment. We believe if we can hold to this format, everyone will leave here tonight enriched. Once again, we'd also like to thank the generosity of the DoubleTree for offering us this venue for free. It is indeed a tremendous gift. And if you haven't heard this before, I will tell you now, this has been the #1 ranked Hilton brand hotel in the world. Right here in Reading.
Yeah.
It's just, I still can't get over it. It's amazing. So it's a great gift. Please feel free to order drinks. There is a bar set up in the back there. You don't have to drink alcohol. She has coffee back there, I believe, and there's water and soda and those kinds of things as well. And make sure to tip your server well. She's spending her time to be with us tonight. We've got a small crowd, so take that into consideration. Now I'd like to introduce to you the Reverend Dr. Stephen Onsman, who will introduce our speaker for the evening. He shakes his head, but he always says this, so you know.
The person with the longest thing on their tombstone wins, so that's what I'm going for. So you're going to hear a lot of the history, and I'm not going to talk much about that, but I do want to say something about being in ministry. It's a challenging thing for those of us who do it. We love it, but it is hard work. Urban ministry is even harder. And Mary is in a part of the city that really struggles with problems that we have everywhere, but it seems to be harder sometimes for folks with economic issues and family issues. There's all kinds of things that seem to be amplified. but we do it because we love it, and Mary does it so well. So she called me maybe a year before the pandemic. That's how we're going to do it. It's not like, the birth of Jesus and then the pandemic. That's sort of like our marker. It was a year before the pandemic or so with this great idea. And I'm all about this because our church does the same thing. People want to use our building, they can make a donation whatever they can afford. I thought, oh, that's a cool idea. But that's nothing compared to this. To put this together has been such a long journey, and the pandemic has just knocked it down, and then Mary just keeps picking it up and knock down and pick it up, and it's a beautiful experience. If you haven't been there, you should just go sometime and have some coffee, bring a couple of extra bucks, throw it in, because those of us who have been lucky in life are able to support folks who are having struggles. And so I've been really privileged to be a part of this work just as a member of the board, and enjoying the food and the coffee, and just seeing how it has really become a bright spot in that part of the city. So I want to introduce my colleague, Mary Wolfe, and she's not just the pastor of Folk Lutheran, she is the undergirder of Café Esperanza. Mary.
I just want to say, it is an incredible privilege to be here tonight. There are many faces here that I don't know, and so that's just really a gift to me to be able to meet some new people who are part of the group of people that are exploring things, are in conversation with each other about important issues. And because quite often, we live in our own little circles, especially in the last few years, right? You don't see people that you're not either living with or closely related to. And I have got to tell this story lots of times, but mostly to people that have already heard it before. So if for some of you this is a new story, I'm just thrilled about that. Especially in light of yet again another incredibly tragic shooting just coming on the heels of both Buffalo and the shooting in California, and then the many shootings that are happening with one or two people being killed or injured all across the country. If there's ever been a time for us to figure out how to come together and to be neighbors to each other, now is the time. So that's the dream of Café Esperanza. But first I'm going to tell you a little bit about what a Pay What You Can Cafe is. So there is an organization called One World, Everybody Eats. This is an organization that is simply a voluntary community of people that are trying to put together a cafe where you can have people come in and eat and drink without, regardless of ability to pay. And I first discovered this when I had this crazy idea that our church owned a really rundown building, and I'll show you pictures of it later, and we should use it for something. And we thought maybe like a drop-in center, or we would have some coffee and soup, and in the winter when it was cold, people could come in and get warm. So I started, of course, to go on the internet. It's always dangerous, Pay What You Can Cafe or a nonprofit cafe, and I came across this particular organization. That woman right there is the founder of the organization, and a number of years ago she won the James Beard Award for philanthropic chefs. She started the first Pay What You Can Cafe in Utah. One day, somebody came in and said, "How much do I owe you?" And she looked at this person and thought, I don't know that I should be telling them how much they should pay. And so she just said, "Whatever you'd like to pay." And that was the beginning of her journey, and then this movement, which is now about 20 years old. You can see that there are cafes all across the country. There are about 60 that are in operation right now, including 3 that are run by the Soul Cafe, the Soul Foundation, which is John Bon Jovi's foundation. So he has opened 3 in New Jersey, including one on one of the campuses in Camden. So, and 2 down by the shore. Now his are a little different from ours. The 2 that are down by the shore, suggested price is $25 for a really elegant dinner. That's really not going to work so well in my neighborhood. But, so I got all kinds of information from them, and so what was just like a half-baked idea in my head, and I had shared it with like my closest associates, which actually is the choir at my church. Is that like that at your church? Like the people that do everything, they're all in the choir too? I don't know, that's the way it is at my church. And they were all really excited about it. So I went to, they had a summit, and it happened to be in Philadelphia. And then I was completely sold on this concept. These are the core values of this organization from which we learned, and without them handing me a manual about how you can get started and like the legal and the financial and just all of the steps you need to follow to open one of these things, I would never have had the courage to even try. But obviously, it's a pay-what-you-can cafe. It's pay-what-you-can pricing. So just say you come in for the very first time, and I'll say to you, good morning, have you ever been here before? And you say, no. And I said, well, do you understand that we're a pay-what-you-can cafe? And you're probably likely to say, well, no, I don't really know what that means. And then I'll say, well, please come up and order whatever you would like. And then at some point during your stay here, you're welcome to pay us what you think the meal is worth. You're also welcome to pay us extra, which would simply be a contribution toward the next person's meal. If you only have a little today, that's fine, pay what you can. And if you can't pay anything at all, we offer you an opportunity, if you would like, to help out a little bit in exchange for your meal. So that's what pay what you can pricing is. Patrons choose their own portion size. So do you know when you go, like, you have to say a cup or a bowl, or you get a salad, and it's more than like 2 people should eat at one meal. And so we always ask people, how much would you like? Would you like a half sandwich? I mean, I can often tell when I'm waiting on somebody and they come in and they say they would like a turkey and cheese panini and some cream of asparagus soup, and then they'll have like a muffin to go with that. I'm looking at them and I'm thinking, there's no way. Like, I'm happy to send the extras home with people, but there's just no way. And the last thing we want to be doing is throwing food away. So we ask people, we're really upfront about it. We don't want to waste anything. Sometimes people will come in and they say, I don't know which soup I want. I'll say, okay, so I'll just give you a little tiny bit of each of the 3 soups, and you can enjoy all 3 today. So you can have cream of asparagus, tomato basil, and beef chili, and see which one you like the best. So that's really important to us that we don't waste things and we don't overstuff our people, which is kind of the American way these days. We do allow people to volunteer, and we have often had, we don't always have jobs for people, but when people want to, and we don't really push that part of our mission, but when we have regulars coming in like every day, people that are like living in an abandoned building and they come in every morning first thing because it's warm and they want to have a big breakfast, usually I can say something like, you know what, a couple guys are going to get together later to clean up the trash that blows into our parking lot. Could you give a hand? Or would you mind taking our sign out front? We haven't gotten to that point yet, and set up the outside table for us. So we do ask people to help out a little bit, and we'd like to develop that even more, especially when we can train people to do some of the more complex jobs. Our food is as local, organic, and seasonal as possible. That's what I always tell people. That doesn't mean that I don't run to the Giant quite often, especially in the winter, and buy vegan yogurt there, because who's making vegan yogurt seasonally? We always have vegetarian, vegan, and gluten-free options. If you are a serious celiac person, we do not have 2 kitchens. And so, we don't pretend to be like that sterile of an environment, but we do have a separate toaster for our gluten-free bread. So we try our best, and I have gluten-free family members, and so we are really careful about that, but we are not perfect in that regard. But we are in partnership with all kinds of local vendors. Like our meat usually comes from Dunder and Heister, the butcher shop in West Reading, who uses only local farmers, all of whom raise their animals on the grass-fed and pastured, and they are humanely treated. So we are really, really aspiring to be the healthiest restaurant in town. So we have 3 staff people, each of whom work 20 hours a week. That in no way covers all of the time we need. So I'm a volunteer. I volunteer there. We have a really wonderful volunteer whose name you'll see on our wall of fame shortly, Charlie Majewski, who is a member of Steve Onsman's church, shows up every Monday and Wednesday, and he has cleaned out our basement, which was, like a horror film before he came, and is now getting the 2nd story ready to be used for meeting space, and we're going to have a computer up there, and some places for kids to come and play chess, and various things like that. We have a lot of volunteers who do a shift a week, and people that come in every single week do like 3 or 4 hours, and they've learned how to do everything. If any of you are an aspiring barista, we have a gorgeous new espresso machine from Italy. It finally arrived, is hooked up and working, and we would love to train you how to make all of the fancy coffee beverages that you would like to make, including we're going to be offering advanced milk steaming so you can do barista art. So if that appeals to anyone, spread the word. It's really, really fun to play with those coffee machines. And we are committed to paying our staff a living wage. That's currently $19 an hour, which a number of years ago would have seemed to me like a huge amount of money per hour. I don't make $19 an hour, but that's because I work at Hope, which, whatever. But when you really think about it, and we don't pay benefits yet. So we aspire to do better, to pay more than that, and actually to pay benefits. But we have a brilliant staff. And then, this is my favorite thing. The last one, a community table is offered. So when you walk in, the very front room has this big, gorgeous table, and you'll see a picture of it soon, that my daughter found online on Facebook Marketplace, and it came from Restoration Hardware. Are any of you wealthy enough to have ever ordered anything? I've looked at Restoration Hardware stuff. So the table, when it was new, a couple years before she bought it, was a $3,000 table, and she got it for $500. And it's gorgeous, and it's huge, and people come in and go, oh, look at this, and they sit there. And the beautiful thing about the community table is, a young woman, Dara McClendon, who just opened like a drop-in center for teens, a nonprofit, she often shows up first thing in the morning for coffee. And she'll be sitting there working on her computer, and then in will walk Noe, one of our friends, who lives down the street and does a lot of time at different programs that are offered in the community for people with mental health issues. And he doesn't talk to people very often, but they've seen each other often enough now that they've developed a relationship. And now Noe has a community, and Radara is connecting with some of the people in our community. And that is played out over and over and over again at that table. When you think about the whole symbolism of breaking bread together and how that breaks down barriers, that community table is such a sacred space. Now you'll see that the volunteers are used to the maximum extent, is in italics. That's no longer one of the core values of One World Everybody Eats, because a whole bunch of chefs have been opening fabulous pay-what-you-can restaurants across the country, especially there's one in Houston. The president of the organization is the wife of the chef there. This is his 3rd restaurant, and they can't have volunteers because their level of food does not allow for volunteers to be serving or cooking the food. I think it's a gift to us that we're going to keep our level of food and community to the level where we can always use volunteers. So, I'm going to backtrack a tiny little bit. This is the corner of Front Greenwich Street. That's the jaggedy building that the cafe is housed in now. Across the street is the church where I'm the pastor, and we had a Tuesday evening community meal for like 8 years. And it always felt too much like a soup kitchen to me. Too much like people knew, just like you line up when you're in school, or you line up when you're in jail, or you line up when, you need a handout. Even no matter how friendly we tried to be, no matter how much we tried to engage people of the community to be servers as well as recipients, just lacked something. There was not much choice. Sometimes there was like 2 vegetables or 2 different desserts, but it just didn't feel like the kind of hospitality that we wanted to offer. So we didn't get rid of that. But we had this building, which was in kind of bad shape. Family Promise had used it for a number of years as their day center until they got a better offer. And it had been pretty much run down. I mean, they used it hard. I don't mean to disparage them. It was used hard. And the 2nd and 3rd floors had been used by other nonprofits, including at some point there were some unhoused people who had found a way to live there for a while. It was in bad shape. And I mean, we had to do something with it. So that's where the idea came from, to have this crazy cafe. So it was a long, long journey. So the vision, this is from one of our early case statements that we made, thinking we were going to, put this out there and everything was going to come into place. We got our first grant in 2012. In 2012, Reading was declared the poorest city in the country. I'm sure you all remember that. And some people from CBS approached an organization called Odyssey Networks in New York City. The guy happened to be the director of that, had worked with CBS before. They produced films about faith. He was from Reading and used to be a member of Atonement Lutheran Church. And also, my daughter just happened, really, it's all chance, to be an intern while she was in school in Manhattan at that place. He said to her, "I think your mom would be interested." So I got a call saying, "Hey, we'd like to do a Christmas Eve special and film it at your church about Reading being the poorest city and how faith can make a difference in getting people through this time." So that happened. It was insane and crazy and wonderful. And then at the end of that, the collegiate churches of New York City had put together some money for funding. And my little idea of this cafe got our first grant. So we got $7,000, which at the time I thought, I could do anything now. $7,000. Man, I'm gonna renovate the whole place. Okay, about $185,000 or $200,000 later. But along the way, we had an ice cream social, and we got the neighborhood together so they got to know what we were planning, and they got to put in their input, which was huge, because we didn't know what the neighbors wanted, but they were really excited about something that would bring people together. One of the people who's pretty active in the neighborhood said that what's really bad in that neighborhood is that people of this culture and people of that culture are suspicious of each other. And they weren't talking about the dominant culture in the United States. They were talking about pockets in that neighborhood not being able to talk to each other, and having a place to sit at the table and talk to each other they thought would be key. We had an article. We thought we were about to open on the front page of Business Weekly and the Reading Eagle. That was a long time ago. Then we had a wonderful event at Sofrito. Remember Sofrito? Sofrito, so sad. But anyway, so I really miss it. And where we got together a whole lot of people and introduced them to the concept. There was lots of enthusiasm. That article was in a magazine called Living Lutheran, which the Lutheran Church, which is my denomination, puts out. It was out across the country. Lots and lots of enthusiasm. But things happened. So I don't know if any of you have ever had the experience when you are doing something that you think is really, really good, that seems to be when things get in your way the most. So I can't even tell you how many things happened, but one of them, the most tragic one, was COVID hit, and then we were not able to get the people to finish construction on the building in order to open. There were still some loose ends, and then during the period of COVID, our beloved contractor, who was a close friend of my daughter's and just a lovely human being, was doing a lot of work for us for nothing, either took his own life or his life was taken. The verdict is still out. But it was a tragic end to a young man's life. The day before our open house, our kitchen manager decided to leave us because she needed more money than we were able to offer her. I mean, so March 2020 did not happen. It was my grandson's 9th birthday too. First day of spring in 2020. Would have been a perfect time. But, so we did a pivot. So it's COVID. The governor has said we can't get together. But I had staff. And I didn't want to furlough the staff, not because I could get a small business loan, one of those loans, because we hadn't been open the year before. But I just thought we have some people, it's not fair to furlough people, what can we do? And to be truthful, during COVID, people were handing us money, like right and left, because we kept doing things. So instead, we did, in partnership with our community dinner that we used to have on Tuesday evenings, we expanded it to Tuesday and Thursday evenings. The elderly people that used to run the community dinner were afraid to come out, rightfully so. They were, they were at risk. And so the cafe staff and others, we served, during 2020 alone, we served over 10,000 takeout meals in our neighborhood. Wow. And they were beautiful meals. I mean, they were really good meals. People were like hearing about it and driving to us to get our food. So here's just a couple of pictures of it. We had a kids table, you can see the kids up there. They would set up with little boxes of juice and hand out like crayons and things and make sure that the kids that came would feel welcome. Those sandwiches at the top that say made with love. ATV Bakery every week would give us 200 rolls for us to make our sandwiches with. It was a huge operation. And we did it in the parking lot because we didn't think we should be inside. And so people would drive by and see us or get off the bus and see us and say, oh, what are you doing? What are you giving out? And take some for lunch tomorrow. Take some for your family and for your neighbors. And it was really a godsend. There was one woman who was working at Red Robin as a waitress, single mom, one child, and was furloughed, and that was her only income. And she had no reserves. And she, was afraid of losing her place to live, but thank goodness evictions were stopped. But this way she could come and get food twice a week. And I know that the schools were giving out food, but our neighborhood is it's like almost a mile from Lowers Park or from Riverside. And you have to go across a lot of busy streets. So little kids were not able to go and get food at their schools. And plus we did Tuesday and Thursday, the schools were doing Monday and Wednesday. So I hope that we were filling in a gap. It was one Tuesday that it was Cinco de Mayo. And so they decided to make burritos just, because why not, that's fun. And some little kids from down the street came down, they were so excited. They got some burritos and they took them home and one of the volunteers said, wait, tu maman. And they were like, yeah, they said, you want to take some for your mom? And they were like, my mom's at work, I can take food home for her. So they all gathered all this food for their family and ran home. The guys were like 2nd and 3rd graders. And a few minutes later, one of them came back and said, I have something for you, and put something in my daughter's hand. And it was a bill, $1 bill. And she said, thank you. And the little one said, my grandparents said, this is for all the good you're doing for the community. And then they ran off, and she opened her hand, and it was a $50 bill. Wow. Like, so something that was happening for the community actually touched the hearts of the people in the community. Another nice thing that happened, you see all that fresh produce there. During the pandemic, nobody was coming to the farmers markets. Rodale Institute and the Kumakamala Ashram, some other local farms, B&H Produce, when they'd have leftover organic produce, they would bring it to us, and we would use it for our meals, and then the rest of it would go home with the neighbors, who were all really happy to come and pick up produce. So, we are actually open. That is our sign. It's not really big. We're not allowed to have, we have one sign on the building. That's all we're allowed to have. Zoning said it has to be this big by this big. It costs us $250 to get the permit to hang a sign. So we put this little thing out front. I'm not sure we're visible enough yet. But that's the building cleaned up. So, that really awful awning was taken down. That's our lift. single most expensive piece of equipment that we have in the building, and it usually doesn't work. So we're still waiting again for the lift people to come back, because I think people try to get in when we're not there. So we're looking at some security features. But so that's Emily. She is the executive director of the operation, but also washes dishes, makes coffee, makes the soup, cleans the bathroom. But anyway, she is there, and next to that on that board, you can see those are some of our partners. Steve Feldman is a member of a church that I used to serve, and he raises bees and he gives us our honey. Other partners are on that wall. You can see Rodale, B&H Produce. That's where we put our menu. There's nothing up there right now. I'm not sure if that was like the day before we opened, but I see food out there. They must have just cleaned it off and didn't put it up. But our menu usually consists of like 3 or 4 soups. There's always a vegan, always a gluten-free, always a vegetarian option. Several breakfast options. We always have a frittata. That's usually my job. I make the frittatas. And French toast, bagels with cream cheese. Baked oatmeal. It's always vegan. We have oat milk. I know Megan Hiskin comes in for the baked oatmeal regularly. That's her favorite thing. And so there's our community table. You can see the size of it. You can't see all of it, but it easily seats 10 people, but you can squeeze more around it. And then that other little seating area, just a few tables in the bay window. So this is our wall of fame. Probably there are some people here that have their name up on that wall of fame, but those are people that have contributed to us in large ways and small ways. And we made a commitment to not make anybody's name bigger than anybody else's. So for instance, there are some foundations up there that have given us like $30,000. But then there's a little name right there, Coraline Trumbauer. And that article there that was in the paper, Coraline is a Girl Scout. And at the end of the cookie sale, she had some leftover cookies. And so she decided that she wanted to donate them to Café Esperanza. So she came in and we had a little photo shoot and we put her name on the wall of fame. That wall will eventually have a tree that will connect all of the names, and we can still put more names in there. Yeah, we're happy to put more names in there. I just finished writing a second grant to the Lutheran Church has a World Hunger Appeal Program, and in the last round of grants, they gave me $10,000 a year for 3 years, and that's running out this year, and they invited me to apply again. So, but that's a huge part of what we need to do to keep this going. We thought we might be able to make about 40% of our overhead costs by people that come in and dine. We're not going to hit that the first year because people are not beating down the door to come in, because a lot of people are not super comfortable still coming out to restaurants, which is totally understandable. So we are still always looking for more grants and funding partners. If anyone knows of any businesses or granting places, I look as much as I can. But that little piece of testimony there is from a young man who used to live in an abandoned building in the neighborhood, but was kicked out because some neighbors called on them, and he's staying on somebody else's couch. But this is what he wrote. Café Esperanza is a much needed and appreciated part of the city. Easily one of the coziest and friendly destinations for delicious and healthy meals prepared by the friendliest of people. I've enjoyed every visit immensely. And if Brian's happy, I think we've already done our job. So one of the things that we do, I know Steve, you have purchased some of these at your congregation, and lots of other people have. So we have wooden nickels that say Café Esperanza, and they have our address on the other side, and they say they're good for one meal, so breakfast or lunch. And I don't care if people come in at 7 o'clock and stay until we close at 3 and eat 3 meals, but we give people free food anyway. But if somebody comes in with this that's been a gift, then they can feel like they are paying for their meal. So also, this gives you something to do when you see somebody that says, we'll work for food, or I'm desperate for food, and if you have a conversation with them and they actually need food, then this gives them some direction about where to get food. We sell these for $10 a piece. You can take them with you. Also, we keep them at the cafe if somebody buys some and gives them back to us, and that's how we kind of keep track of people that come in and are not able to pay anything. So in my denomination, one of the biggest pushes is to invite people into the way of God. And they're especially looking for ways to achieve economic diversity. And like, I know that the Lutheran Church is the whitest denomination in the country. And so they're addressing it. Well, I know, we've got competition, I realize. And I know we are also addressing that. But economic diversity is a really hard nut to crack, because people that don't have the same tastes as you, or dress like you, or able to take the same vacations, that seems harder. And for that reason, this seems to offer a model. I'm not saying that everybody should open one, although I do wish that pay what you can cafes would be as ubiquitous as McDonald's. I think that would go a long way toward making this world a safer and more wholesome and more equitable place to live. But economic diversity, I think, is the one thing that we have actually been able to make some kind of progress with, because the people the staff and volunteers represent all, the whole spectrum of economic diversity. Our newest hospitality manager, who we love, his name is Janelle. He has been here for 3 years. He's from the Dominican Republic. His English is fun, and his Spanish is beautiful and perfect. And he has really had, a lot of fun, learning. But he has the biggest smile and is the most incredibly welcoming human being when anybody comes into the cafe. We are thrilled with him. Then our kitchen manager is an older woman. Well, she's not as old as me, but anyway, an older woman. And she's from Brooklyn, and she brings her Brooklyn. Sometimes a little too much Brooklyn, but she brings her Brooklyn. And then you saw Emily, who is the hospitality manager, the executive director, and she lives a few blocks away. Janelle lives a few blocks away too. So she lives in Center Park, so it brings kind of that, young adult, trying to be inclusive of the community, hardworking. She's my daughter, so full disclosure. This was her dream as much as my dream, and it could never have happened if she were not working by my side for years before it ever became anything close to reality. But economic diversity, I think, is something in this country that we really need to work on, because the gap between those who have and those who have not is growing, and the barriers are growing between those groups as well. So I'm going to end with this. This was all a dream that took a couple $100,000 and 7 or 8 years to come to fruition. It's still in its infancy and in its growing phase, but I think that this quote says everything that all of us really want for our neighbors, and I hope that the cafe can be a part of helping that to happen. Thank you very much for your time. I have no idea what time it is. That was way longer than a normal sermon, probably shorter than you're used to.
7:42.
Well, we have time for
Just right. Comments or
and
questions?
comments.
I came down on a Tuesday. Are you open on Tuesdays yet?
No, let me explain what.
You should tell people.
Right, we're open. So I've got cards up here that have our hours on it and address and things. But we can't be open on Tuesdays because zoning won't allow us to be open on Tuesdays because the congregation, we share the parking lot with the congregation that owns our building, and they have a food pantry on Tuesdays, and there's not enough parking. So that was a rule, that if the congregation's doing anything, we can't be open. We break that rule all the time, but not on Tuesdays, because that congregation's food pantry served more food the last 2 years than any other food pantry in Berks and Schuylkill counties. It's huge. And so having the cafe open at the same time actually would be a problem for the neighborhood. But anyway, I'm so sorry.
They were hauling in a lot of food.
Yeah, that was it.
It's a lot.
Are you ready?
How you doing, Mary? Good to see you.
Good to see you.
I'll try not to be too judgmental with what I'm going to say. We did promote tonight's event. It's a great presentation. I appreciate it. Was hoping this whole room would be filled. The city of Reading is a very giving city. I mean, there's lots of organizations that are here to help the people in need, but unfortunately, sometimes with the organizations that are out there, it's more about me, not about the community working together. We really appreciate everything you're doing. Most of the people in this room know me and Sandra, know about our organization, have donated to our organization, work with our organization, and that's what it's all about, is these organizations working together. We apologize, we haven't been able to get out to one of your events yet, but hopefully one of these days we will. So, but we're seeing you tonight, great presentation.
Thank you. Well, and speaking of events, we were supposed to have an ice cream social on Friday, talking about like the bad luck that has plagued, not just bad luck, the things that have plagued us. We were going to finally have a grand opening because we thought we were actually at the place where we could really introduce ourselves to the neighborhood. It was supposed to be last Friday from 3 to 5. The heavens opened at like 10 to 3, and it lasted until about 5. And our ice cream vendor, which was the Great American Creamery, had called us about an hour before and said, we can't risk coming with our ice cream truck in our tent. And so, if we say we're going to have an event, check the weather. Call us, maybe.
My question is, what type of volunteers are you looking for, or in what area of work?
So all kinds of volunteers. We're looking for people who would like to be greeters, who would like to, when someone comes in and say, hello, this is a Pay What You Can cafe, or just say, this is your first time here, this is where you come and order, so you bring them up to the counter. We are looking for people who want to be servers. We would love to train any number of baristas, which is actually a great job skill if you know people that need a skill to put on their resume. We are happy to have people that are happier in the back of the house. We have a 3-bay sink, and there's always a lot of dishes to wash. We have people that make salads and chop food, and all of our food is really simple, so you don't have to learn how to do things complicated. Like, if we say we're having a spinach and strawberry salad, well, there's spinach in it and there's strawberries, then you ask the people what else they would like in their salad. So, it's not like you have to memorize all kinds of things. So it's very simple. We are also always looking for people that like to do, handyman, handywoman things. Because we're trying to fix up our 2nd and 3rd floors so we can offer that space. We're looking for gardeners because we have space out back where we're trying to grow some of our produce. We have a community garden a building away where we're growing tomatoes and herbs, and we just put potatoes in. So we would also be happy for people that are really good at social media things, that want to create some of our advertising. We need artists. We have no art on our walls yet because we're trying to get relationships with various schools to put some art on our walls, but we'd also be happy to have artists place there. Anything that you can think of that you would want to do, because our little tiny staff, and me, and our other volunteers really can't do it all. So we're just always scrambling. Shoppers. People that would be willing to say, sure, I'll go to Kimberton, Whole Foods, and pick up vegan yogurt. So almost anything you can imagine, we can use energy and interest.
Thank you very much, Reverend Mary. This is a very nice presentation. This is not my first time to hear about it. And it seems like a lot of changes have been done since the last time I was there. So, what you do reminds me of something very dear to my heart. I used to do. I cannot do it no longer. But my question is, I mean, we know everything with the will of God. I mean, we can hope for anything, but if God is not wanting it, it's not going to happen. So what is your really main goal of what you do? Then what are you looking to do in the next 5 years? Are you going to have other spots like we've seen on the map, or exactly what's your goal in this? Thank you.
Two really good questions. So, I think our overall vision for the cafe, we have changed some things on our literature. The first change is not just a welcoming place, but a radically inclusive place. And so we're really trying now, our next push is to really reach out to people that often are not comfortable coming into community spaces, that have not been welcomed. And to also bring together those people with other people across the board. Not to be a social service agency, there are other people that are expert at that, connecting people, just so that all of us can look at the next person that we see and say, that's a human being. And, oh, I remember when I talked to somebody who had, was telling me a similar story that, had this issue in their life. I don't think that my goal for this cafe is any bigger than that. Really good healthy food, introducing people to choices that they never had before. And an interesting side fact from that is one of our board members really wanted us to start serving rice and beans and empanadas and things that people in the neighborhood were really familiar with. And two things, we knew that we couldn't make them as well as any of the corner stores, number one. But number two, we were asking our guests if that's what they would like, and they were like, I'm so done with that. I'd like a salad. Please, I'm trying to eat healthier. You have vegetarian options. What's in that soup? You have gluten-free things. I feel better when I eat gluten-free. So around healthy food, to build bridges between all different kinds of people in the community. And then this summer, especially with children. Long term, I'll tell you this, don't tell anybody in my congregation that they're listening. Long term, I should probably retire fairly soon. But it doesn't mean I have to be not involved. And this is a separate 501c3. I am a pastor of a church. This is a separate 501c3. I can still be involved in this. But I would really love to see a branch open, because most people aren't. We have some people that take the bus that come to us, and we have a lot of people that walk pretty far, but not everybody can do that. I would love to see another cafe called, Cafe Peace, or opening in a few different areas of this city, and offering a place for people to gather safely and to know that they're going to be treated with dignity and welcome no matter what.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there others? Questions or comments? Okay, so one of the things that all these organizations need is money. And I was trying to think how long I've been involved with this. I'm not afraid to ask for money. What we do with these is when somebody comes to our church looking for food, we have an emergency food thing, so we maybe 5 to 10 families a day will help out. We give them one of these, or 2 of them, to go and buy lunch. Your congregations or your organizations can do that. There's envelopes here with the name and address. You can either make a donation or take it to an organization you're involved with and ask them to even commit to a yearly gift. It doesn't take a whole lot of $100 or $200 gifts to allow a program like this to do really well. So if you're not already doing it and you have some interest, these are here. Oh, and the cards, yes.
Yeah, I also have this information if you'd like to know, it's in English and Spanish, so you can take it. And these are our last. We had 1,000 printed. This is what we're down to. But so I brought all the rest. We're gonna get some more printed. But they also have our website and our Facebook information, so you can follow us on Facebook. And please come in and eat with us. Like, that's the most important thing. We would love to come in and see you and meet you and serve you. And bring your friends and especially invite people who maybe don't get to have a restaurant meal very often. And we will be happy to serve them.
Yeah, have meetings.
Yes, we do. So
Go
a
have
lot of times
meetings.
we host meetings there, and within, I would say, a month or two, because Charlie works like crazy, the second floor will be ready, and we're going to have a private meeting room up there that with a conference table for, like, you know, a dozen or so people if you need to have a meeting that's not in the fray of the cafe.
Okay.
How many people a day are you having as an average?
That's a really good question. It is, you know, it is so weird and hit and miss. We'll have like a Monday where we'll have 25 people, and then we'll have a Friday where we'll have 4 people because it starts raining, or it's beautiful weather and they're all outside having fun. If I was going to have to say an average, I would say maybe 15 a day average. Then, you know, we'd like to get up to about 25 a day, I think is about what our capacity would be. It's a small place, it's not big, and we don't want to be really big because when you have, like, when we used to have we still have our community meal, it's all takeout now, and we're serving 100 meals, it's a little harder to build community when you have so many people coming through. But in small groups, a lot of times, you know, I'll have an opportunity, I'll just sit down and, you know, grab myself a cup of coffee and get to know somebody. And so that's just been beautiful. So I would say about 25 is our goal. And so, you know, we're better than halfway there. We just need a little bit more publicity. And we haven't been like in the paper yet or any of that stuff. Well, except before we opened, which does not count. But, you know, we have not done any major advertising because we wanted to wait till we were ready. Because what if we had been advertised, had 1 million people come in, and we're not able to treat them the way that we really wanted to treat them? So that's where we are.
Are there any other questions or comments?
Meetings. When are you open? Are you open on Thursdays, first of all?
We are open Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday from 7 to 3. And we are available to be open other times. We have opened in the evenings for various meetings. We have really wonderful volunteers who are willing to come in, and sometimes our staff will even volunteer a couple of hours and come in extra in the evenings for meetings, because we really want people to use the space and to get to know the space.
Thank you.
Mary, thank you so much for your presence here tonight and your presentation, but even more so for the work that you're doing. And Café Esperanza is an excellent name for it, for hope. And I think it's very important that we use every opportunity to build community and take responsibility for our neighbors while we're preserving dignity as well. It kind of reminded me when I was working in the old city of Jerusalem, and one night some Jewish friends and a few others were invited to a Muslim bakery, and we went down there at probably about 11 o'clock at night. And while we were sitting around, we couldn't understand one another's language, but they brought out the bread, and we shared bread together. And it's just in that time together, a significant thing happened. Now, in the history of the world, it's very insignificant, didn't mean much, but it changed a few of us. And we had a different perspective. And I think what you're doing here in Reading is actually we're changing the world one event at a time. And it may be small, but it can grow. And the people that partake of the meals and even all of you here tonight, perhaps you might find a way to start somewhere, whether it would be in Hamburg or Kutztown or Exeter or whatever. But we can change the world, and we do need to change it. And by doing these things that you've started here. So thank you so much for that inspiration.
Thank you.
Just a few announcements about, this is the last event of the season, and hopefully when we come back in September, it'll be with a different type of program, and we're looking for ideas. We have a number of programs lined up, and we just need to confirm them with some people. The first one in September, Charlie Curtis is going to be speaking about science of mind, and you want to say anything about that, just briefly?
Yeah.
What I'm going to be talking about is the science and theology of mind-body healing. It's what I do for a living. And the science and the theology are literally coming together in a nexus, which I think is very, very exciting. The people in the leading edge scientific world are coming together in a way that they're using things like EEG portable devices and other brainwave stuff to put people in a spiritual state in about 15 minutes where they can open up and begin to heal. And there's a lot of stuff that we can do. I'm also a board certified hypnotist, so I know a whole lot of things that I can do with words to put people in a very relaxed state where they can heal. I know about 30 different protocols, including things like talking to a disease and all of a sudden it will decide to disappear, or using things like Socratic logic. It's a particular form of logic that causes the subconscious mind to wake up and change, sometimes even instantly. We have a protocol called acu-tapping, where you're tapping on acupuncture points, and that causes chronic pain, and lots of other things that just go away. You get rid of phobias in 15 minutes. Things that would take, in traditional psychotherapy, could take months. So then that's the first part of the program. Second part of the
We don't want you to leave the program tonight.
well, they do want to hear this part, because I'm going to talk about what Jesus did and how there's a map in the New Testament for how to heal, and that it's all coming together. That's what Science of Mind does. They've been doing it for 100 years, and it really works. We have thousands of documented healings, and I think you'll want to hear the full program.
Thank you, Charlie. We'll look forward to that. And if you're not on our mailing list and would like to get more information, please put your name and your email address on the paper. If you're already receiving it, then don't bother with that. And we also welcome your donations to help support Spirit on Tap. As I said, we're looking for ideas for...
They can write them on here. Write ideas on here.
Oh, yeah, Bob is holding up a blank piece of paper on one side. We are looking for ideas, so if you have any suggestions for not only Spirit on Tap, but there are two other programs in the Spiritual Exploration Project, Soul Cafe, which meets at the Why I'm Missing restaurant, and Contemplative Spirituality, which meets up in Kutztown. So if you have ideas for any of those, either write them down or speak to me or speak to Steve or Bob. Steve, Bob, do you have anything else you want to comment on? Thank you very much for your attendance, and again, thank you, Mary, for being with us.